My name's Matt, by the way. If I
Right,
didn't say.
Matt.
Yeah. G'day, Tim, and good to be chatting with you today.
Matt.
Killing Reagan, you play President Ronald Reagan in that show. What brought you to play that role? How did that come to be?
You know what? I was one of those things. I just got a call out of the blue, and on a Friday night, I was at my my daughter's in-laws' house, and my phone kept buzzing. It wasn't on. I turned it off certainly, so I wouldn't be disturbed. And it kept buzzing, and it was my agent and my manager, and so finally, after the third ring, I sort of said, "Well, I better take this. Maybe it's something." And it was, and there was an offer to do this movie, and once I was convinced, and I thought about it over the weekend, read the script, and once I realized that it wasn't a political story and it wasn't, propaganda or something to do with, that kind of a thing, and it was really a love story about Ronnie and Nancy and how this killing attempt affected their relationship, and I was in. And the challenge of playing such an iconic figure as Ronnie Reagan, really appealed to me and terrified me at the same time. So, and that's what we as actors do. We try and, find those moments where we can just get out there on a very high wire and go, what am I doing? I could just kill myself here tonight and then I'll be over. But, and then your technique and your training takes over, and hopefully you survive.
Yeah, had anyone ever told you before that you looked like Ronald Reagan? Is that something you'd heard? Because I was showing someone your photo the other day, and they were like, "Oh, he does look like Ronald Reagan," and that was like not from the show.
My father had a resemblance because it was from the same time zone. Basically, I think Ronnie was born in 1912, and my mother was born in 1911, and my dad was born in 1909, and there was that similarity. Children of the Depression. But I had every random people come up to you and say, you look like so and so and so, and I go, well, thank you, And a few times people have said that to me, and I played him before in a short film where I played. I appeared to this shock radio jock in a dream as Ronald, the ghost of Ronald Reagan. So yeah, I've done it before, and it's so challenging and insightful, but this was really a dream role, and getting inside the skin of a man like that, it was very exciting.
Did you get an insight into Reagan from playing him that you didn't have before?
I think I felt like I did, because I read everything, listened to everything, watched everything I could about him, and the most interesting things were his autobiography and his his diary as president. So those are the things. If we're doing a scene about this day, the day he was shot, I could look up what he was saying, thinking, and doing on those days, and find out what his thoughts were. And the most remarkable thing about it all, I thought, was that right after he was in recovery, he asked about this guy, and we do a scene to this effect. He asked about this guy who shot him, Hinckley, and he said, I'll pray for him, and I have to forgive him, and I just thought that was a very enlightened spiritual side of the man that I really probably wouldn't have guessed that he was capable of, and I was very moved by that, that it had changed his life, I think, in a sense, from what I had understood, that he felt, now I've got a purpose in my presidency, in my life, and I've been spared for a reason, and I'm going to expend all my capital to try and bring about sort of a détente between the United States and the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and is there a moment in the movie that you feel like was, I don't know, you're particularly proud of, or was particularly interesting to film?
Surprisingly, the moment that was the most emotional for me, that just out of the blue, that I had no idea. Sometimes you're acting, all of a sudden a scene when this emotions come up and you don't expect it, were the scenes where he was joking in the hospital after he'd been shot. He was always joking anyway. And here was a situation where and I think it's probably your attempt to try and make things seem normal and try and, make light of it. And he was joking with the doctors. And when Nancy came in and he said, "Honey, I forgot to duck," which was a famous quote from. Sorry about that. It was a famous quote from Jack Dempsey when he lost the heavyweight championship. So, but that got very emotional for me. And then when he said to the doctors on the operating table, "I hope you're all Republicans," again, a joke to try and lighten it up with them and relax them. But it was just, I was overcome with emotion, you know. So it was surprising, the gravity of it and the humor of it and the contrast between those.
Did it, like you said that at first you were like a bit like sort of, oh, I better see what the script is and how Reagan's portrayed and stuff, and you were really it really appealed to you that it was more a relationship piece rather than a sort of political piece, the film. Did you feel, yeah, has there been a political response at all that you've gotten from the piece? Because like people have so many different opinions on someone like Ronald Reagan. Yes,
I mean, I was not of his political bent. You know, we were not on the same side of the aisle, as we say here. But what I wanted to play, I wanted to find the heart and the humanity rather than the history and the histrionics, you know, or the politics. And you can't act politics, but you can act what, you know, your feelings are. I'm so sorry.
No, you can get it.
Are about this. Your feelings are about this person. Let's kill that. You can't act those things except emotions, you know, and your wants and desires. And so that's really what we focused on. And it was really moving, and I was impressed by the man, you know, and I let go of all my preconceptions about him.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you think and also the film is centered on the assassination attempt, so it's like sort of not like the life of Ronald Reagan, not even about the presidency of Ronald Reagan, but it's also like centered around this one event. Do you think that was like a like, do you prefer sort of like biopics that are more around an event or more around a whole life?
I think that it's a great dramatic device, and I think it's very clever of Bill O'Reilly to have done it this way, because you get history, but you get it in the middle of a mystery. You know, you get it, you get the personal insight into these people and their lives and what was going on, but you're not trudged through, well, there's the inaugural speech, then he went to Congress, and then he fought for this, and then he did that, and gosh, you know, damn it, we have to get this bill through. You know, and there's certain predictability, and I think that the personal drama is the most interesting thing. So I found it very refreshing and very exciting to do that, and I think it's very clever on Bill O'Reilly's part that, you know, he's created this structure to do it that way, and I thought it played really well.
Did you get to meet Bill O'Reilly at any point? Did he give you any opinions on how to play Reagan?
He didn't actually give me any insight, but he liked what he saw, and he was very kind and generous to me. And I must say, was very pleased with the way it turned out and what the work that Rod Lurie did and Cynthia Nixon and I did. Because he also, you know, he obviously reveres Ronald Reagan. And then I did an episode of his show to promote this, and contrary to what I had thought about Bill O'Reilly, you know, and sort of his news persona, he's a very charming man. He's a very bright guy. Obviously, I think he went to Harvard, you know. I mean, he's one of those East Coast smart guys. He's very tall. He's like 6'5", you know. I mean, and he was a lot of fun, and a very good professional talk show host and news guy.
You were also talking to me a bit before we started about this new Netflix film you got coming up, Six Balloons. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Tease us a bit about Six Balloons.
Six Balloons is a family drama starring Dave Franco and Abby Jacobson, and about the effects of drug addiction on brothers and sisters, a brother and sister, and their family and their extended family. And I played the father, and Jane Kaczmarek played the mother, and it was so interesting to step into that world from playing Reagan, which was a very immersive role. And this was like a whole other thing, because these parents were sort of in denial about this situation. And which is a choice that a lot of parents make. And they go, oh, they're going to be fine. And say, oh, it's okay. But it was wonderful to work with these young, talented people, Franco and Abby, and just it was a great experience. And it was also right here in Los Angeles, so it was very nice to do this, as a way of cleansing the palate after playing Reagan and doing that totally immersive experience.
Yeah, you and Jane, such funny people, like playing.
She's a crack up.
Yeah, less funny roles for you to be playing.
It was, it was great, and I think it was just that ability just to stay loose and I think that there's also always those elements in drama of humor, and it heightens the drama, So and Abby is also, she's very funny as well, and so it was one of those things that all these people came together, and Franco is very funny. So it was all these people came together and took on this small little independent movie, labor of love, and a very interesting script and writer director. And it was, I think it's going to be a very interesting, deeply moving film.
When cut was called, was it like, were you all drained from the sort of material, or was it like jokes and stuff?
Well, it was jokes because we weren't really aware too much of what was going on. We had our, our feelings about it, but they had the more intense storyline, and it was also about how their friends and family just sort of, oh yeah, they'll be okay, how you cover, and it was also a very social situation. It was a birthday party for my daughter's boyfriend, and so we were there with a lot of people, and you try and keep it together. We did have one scene in the bathroom where all of us got in there, and it was pretty intense, where we're going like, what's going on here? What the hell is happening? And where is he? What's going on with him? And it's, how parents deal or don't deal with the fact that their son is addicted to heroin.
Like, speaking of addiction, that's something that you dealt with a bit on The West Wing with your character, John Hoynes, the vice president. That being a part of that show, which set Emmy records and things like that, what was it like to be an actor on that show, a sort of recurring guest character? You were inconsistently throughout the series, but you weren't in every episode.
No. It was always a treat, and it was like stepping into like Wimbledon or the U.S. Open. It was pretty intense because Aaron Sorkin writes such depth and such intensity in the dynamic and the relationship and the conflict in the stories, with so much verbiage and so much dialogue at such a great pace. And the trick with Aaron is every word has to be spoken as he wrote it. I remember one time a script supervisor came up to me after a take, and she said, that's a semicolon, not a comma. And it was like, okay, all right, that's a choice. I mean, it's like, now we're splitting hairs, but that's Aaron, that's how he is. So it's one of those things that you want to honor him and the words, because he's a playwright and he's a great writer. So, and working with Allison Janney and Brad Whitford and Martin Sheen and all the fine actors, John Spencer, and I'm leaving a bunch of people out, but they were just incredible. And it was a really very moving and generous group of people to work with, and I fondly remember it.
Did you have a favorite actor to work off and bounce off, or a particular scene that you sort of like just look back on with particular fondness?
I think John Spencer was one of my favorite people to work with, who played Leo McCarey, who was President Bartlett's chief of staff. And we were both recovering alcoholics in the story, and I remember, you know, right at the beginning of the series, we had this relationship that sort of went deep, you know, and it was one of the few times they allowed Hoynes, my character, to be generous and compassionate. I was usually the bad guy, so I extended an invitation to Leo to come to my AA meeting, and you know, he was nervous. He said, "Well, who knows about this and this?" And I said, "Nobody knows. It's a private meeting, and it's down in the basement of the White House, and we're covered. It's a poker. It looks like a poker game. Everybody says it's a poker game, and then, you know, that's what it is. So why don't you come to that?" And it was a deep bond between us, and I also loved working with Allison Janney. She's just remarkable and tall.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think Hoynes brought to the show? Because you said he's often the bad guy, but he showed humanity there.
You know, it was contrast, and it was, you know, he was a political mind, and he was somebody who had underestimated Bartlett. You know, misunderstood exactly how powerful and profound he could be, and the fact that he could win. We talked about it backstage, sort of off stage, he was sort of like LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson was to JFK. You know, he felt, I should be the president. This young man doesn't have half the experience, skill, or intellect that I do, and I should be the president, and I'm going to put up with him. But it's like, this is a grave misjustice here. And, you know, but you know that we had to deal with that and get over that. And it was fascinating. And I love parts like that and projects like that, because it just allowed me to do voluminous research. And I love to read anything and everything I can and could about the White House and presidents and vice presidents, and you know, the inner workings of what goes on backstage. And that's why I think Killing Reagan was so much fun too, because it's backstage at the White House. You get to see beneath the curtain, you know, like you just get to see the Wizard of Oz and really what's going on in there. And, you know, the great and almighty Oz is really just a man, you know. So I find it sort of parallels what the love that we have of Shakespearean histories, you know, like Henry IV, I and II, and Richard II, Richard III, and all those kinds of plays, because it's America's version of that. I mean, it's not certainly an iambic pentameter, but it's our look at the histories.
Yeah, and I think, like, what I always thought with Hoynes is he's one of the most interesting characters in the first 3 seasons in particular, where he wasn't one of the good guys, but he did have that real humanity to him, and he was a hard character to pin down in terms of like, sort of whether he was a guy you liked or didn't like. Whereas the West Wing, a lot of the other characters, you knew you liked them or you knew you didn't.
Yeah, they were all good guys, deep, you know, and they were such wonderful characters. So this added a shading and kind of a, you know, a chance to do that, but it's better to be president, you know. It's better to sit behind the desk than get out there, you know, and have him wave you in. So I must say. Yeah,
you enjoyed having some Oval Office scenes.
It's great to sit behind that desk.
Yeah. And congratulations on your Critic Choice nomination for Killing Reagan.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
That was really cool. And like, we'll see what happens with the Golden Globes and the Emmys, which are a whole like year away, it seems. But the Emmy season always creeps up.
Isn't it weird? It's backward. I mean, it's like their season ends in September, and it's like, you know, it's really kind of very confusing to me. But it's an honor for the Critics' Choice nomination, and really wonderful company to be in. And I think I'm the dark horse, one of the dark horses. But that's no shame there, and I'm very proud to be in this group. And we'll see about the other nominations.
Yeah, it's interesting you say before how Reagan kept a diary, and that was helpful for you as an actor to read. And I think like I remember Jimmy Carter wrote a diary when he was president and stuff. Seems like an old president thing to do, like back in the day. Where I'm not sure if presidents are now, they're all like, it's tweeting is how actors will be studying. It's all like
God forgive us. But I believe that, anyone with a presence of mind, of a normal person would do that, because you are chronicling history. You are, at the wheel of the ship of state,
Yeah.
And so I think that, I'm certain President Obama does, and I think he does. I mean, they were talking about his, where he goes into his study at night in the residence and dictates, his events and recollections.
Oh, that's good.
Right. So I think it's sort of an obligatory thing that a president must do, or just to make sure that it's recorded correctly. Today this happened. I spoke to her. I spoke to him.
Yeah.
This, it's sort of the inside line. It was fascinating to read.
Yeah, like not so much as for facts, but for just what is the insight, what is the perspective of that man, or hopefully in the future woman, like this perspective on those day-to-day decisions and things like that.
Absolutely, and then you really get to be a fly on the wall backstage and see that. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah. It's been so great talking today, Tim. It's been really cool. Dish a bit of West Wing, but also talk about Killing Reagan and get a bit of a tease to Six Balloons, and all the best for the awards circuit coming up. All the various things that are coming up.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sorry about all the phones ringing, but it's usually
no, that's fine.
It's real life intriguing here. But thank you very much for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, no worries.